It's now one of the most notorious events of the 20th century. On the 15th of April 1912, the RMS Titanic, bound for New York on her maiden voyage, struck an iceberg. The unthinkable happened and the ship sank. Without enough lifeboats to accommodate all the passengers, over 1,500 people lost their lives. Last year, I was asked to write a book about the story of the Titanic in the words of those who were instrumental in building her, designing her, outfitting her, and also sailing on her, those who survived, but also those who perished. As part of the research process, I was lucky enough to meet the last living survivor, Malvina Dean, who sailed on the ship when she was only 9 weeks old. In this exclusive interview, she tells the emotional and intimate story about sailing on the world's most famous ship.
One night, there was a crash, and my father said, I'd better go up on deck and see what's happened. So he went up and came back. The ship has apparently struck an iceberg, get the children out of bed and on deck as quick as possible. And I believe that's what saved us, because ever so many thought, the ship's unsinkable, she won't go down, I'm not going to bother. But he didn't. He thought, well, he didn't know what was going to happen, so he had us up on deck as quick as possible. My mother was put in the lifeboat, and I, because I was so small, I was put in a sack and put in the lifeboat.
Malvina's family were on their way to start a new life in America.
My father was working in a public house, and then he heard from my cousin in America who was saying he'd have a much better life in America, talked it over with my mother, and she was willing to go, which was quite something in those days. I was thinking, I was a baby, and my brother was under 2.
Why did they decide to board the Titanic of all ships?
Well, they weren't going on the Titanic. They were supposed to go on an American ship. I have a feeling it was called the California. But I couldn't say for sure. But then because there was a coal strike, and because all the coal they had to go on the Titanic, they took the coal off the other ships and put it on the Titanic. And my father was going on the other one, was asked if he'd like to go on the Titanic. So he thought, of course, it was fantastic. So immediately says, yes. So we shouldn't really have been on the Titanic at all.
What class did they sail in?
Oh, 3rd class, or steerage, yes. Because he wanted to save all the money he had to open his tobacco shop in Kansas.
But there was to be no tobacco shop in Kansas. The moment the Titanic struck an iceberg, everything was to change for the Dean family. Once in the lifeboat, with Malvina placed in a canvas sack to keep her warm, her mother soon realised that her son, Bert, was missing.
When she got on the lifeboat, she found she had me, obviously, but not him. But she had enough to worry about and to look after me to try to find him if he was on the same lifeboat. But then when we arrived, when the Carpathia picked us up, he was there, one of the other passengers, and looked after him.
What about your father?
He said, hope to see you later, and of course, never did. When this you see, remember me, the baby rescued from the sea.